We've endured weeks of chaotic tariff threats from US President Donald Trump. First they're on, then they're off again, then they're delayed but only for certain products, and the details are changing every day. It's a lot of uncertainty, but one thing that stayed constant here in Canada is talk about interprovincial trade barriers. But what are they? And what would that mean for an island like Newfoundland or a great northern expanse like Labrador? Canada is huge, and each province and territory has a lot of independence. Healthcare, education, alcohol sales, all run by provincial governments. So when it comes to buying and selling goods to each other, the rules aren't always the same. Take food production. Provinces have different minimum prices for milk, say, different food inspection regulations, packaging laws, and transportation rules that dictate how much cargo an 18-wheeler can carry on a highway. It all makes sending goods across the country complicated and expensive. This is economist Tony Fang at Memorial University. He says if he were premier, he'd be jumping at this opportunity to cut through the red tape and open up trade within Canada. He says if it's done correctly, there's a lot of money to be made. Some estimates put that number as high as $200 billion per year across the country. It wouldn't make up for the loss of American consumers, but it would definitely help. Here's the thing, losing all those rules could come at a cost. Doug May, a former economics professor at Memorial University, explains it pretty simply. Removing regulations and rules might mean removing some industry protections. Like by, say, dairy boards that set prices for milk. Processors in this province have to pay a set number of dollars for milk. Legally speaking, they're not allowed to pay any less. And that's according to a piece of legislation called the Natural Products Marketing Act. That law exists because of an idea in economics called comparative advantage. In other words, some places are great at making some things and just aren't that good at making others. So compared to somewhere with better weather and grasslands and infrastructure, dairy farmers here might have a tough time competing. Removing the rules that protect them means these industries could collapse. Say we suddenly got an influx of cheap milk from Quebec. Quebec farmers, hypothetically, sell their milk for $1 less than local producers. If government regulations aren't forcing processors and grocers to buy local milk, they're going to reach for the cheaper option. Farmers here could lose their livelihoods. They might move to find jobs elsewhere and take their spouses with them, people who work in things like healthcare and education. And for a province that's already struggled with unemployment, population decline, and industry decimation, that's a scary thought. Now, if that all sounds pretty extreme, well, it might be. Trade barriers like tariffs provide some protection for industries that might not do so well on a level national playing field. But both Fang and May say that removing some of those trade barriers means that we can focus on the industries that would do well. And luckily, Newfoundland and Labrador has a few of those. Our highest grossing exports are offshore petroleum, minerals, and seafood. Crude oil and iron ore together make up 80% of the total value of all of our exports, and that's about a third of our GDP. Fang points out that not many provinces can compete with those goods anyway. They don't have snow crab or massive iron mines. That's Newfoundland and Labrador's advantage, and free market economics says we need to focus more on what we do best. Okay, so moving on from theory to practice, the provinces have agreed to look at what regulations they can scrap to encourage more buying and selling across provincial borders, but that doesn't mean they're all going out the window. Fang suggests we might end up with several different trade agreements with various provinces. So, for example, we could end up with a seafood processing plant agreement with Nova Scotia. Collaboration, not competition. But it's still early days. We don't yet have predictive models like this. And Fang says something like this would take months of research to complete, math that just can't keep up with all of the executive orders flying out of the White House. So the provinces are taking small steps. They've agreed to figure out what barriers they can remove by June 1st. Most recently, everyone except Newfoundland and Labrador has agreed to direct-to-consumer alcohol sales. That doesn't mean provinces will be scrapping their liquor boards or changing their tax structures. It simply means you can order a case of your favorite stout while you're living in Montreal. In fact, the provinces have actually been taking small steps to open up interprovincial trade for a long time. Their most recent major move, the Canadian Free Trade Agreement, was signed back in 2017. So this isn't a new conversation, it just has renewed urgency. If US tariffs come into effect before we found new markets for all our stuff, it could mean massive job losses. In oil and the fishery, 1 in 2 jobs could disappear.